Welcome back. We'll be heading over to Serie A right around now. Mina, we still have a title race on our hands, yes. Juventus and Milan. Sort of, just barely, but it still is a race.
What do you mean just barely?
4 points.
Yeah, well, it's not much.
Oh, there you go. I'm glad you still believe. But let's start in the race for third, because there was a point, there was a point, Napoli and Lazio were, I just thought it was fascinating. When you've got two games on at the same time, you're sort of following the ebb and flow. So Napoli go out there, they're playing Catania. They waste about 7 goal chances, most of them through Cavani. Then they're sort of 2-0 up. In the meantime, Lazio are playing Cagliari. Lazio are playing badly. There's no close. Rocky's up front. He's falling over. And, well, so this looks like, all right, Napoli are back in the hunt. They're going to make this big 2-point leap forward. But then, boom, Catania hit them twice, finishes 2-2, and Lazio somehow grab a goal and win, and Lazio's still in third place. Is there any rhyme or reason to it?
To be honest, for me, I've never been a huge fan of Walter Mazzarri. I don't think he's the greatest tactician, and I think that they've just become quite easy to suss out. Defensively, their back line needs a lot of work, and it needs to be changed. They're lacking in pace. They can't head to save their lives. So whenever it comes to set pieces, you know that you can hit Napoli, and you saw what happened in the
well, they have the guy who can head, of course, Fedor Fernandez. The problem is that's all he does, which is why he doesn't start.
Yeah, exactly. He's bad at everything else, but you can't just play him. But they are also you should never underestimate Catania. You see, when they were talking, and this really bothers me when people talk about the fact that Milan have an easy run in, and then Juventus is harder. For me, Catania is the next match. That's like one of the hardest teams to try to beat this season.
I think the thinking was that late in the season in Serie A, those mid-table teams like Catania, who really don't have that much to play for.
Happy with mediocrity.
Well, I'm happy, but they've proved their point this season. Montella's probably going to leave, and so they might give you an easier ride than somebody just fight his step.
So?
Sorry?
You think he's going to leave?
I would imagine Montella is being lined up for bigger and better things, right?
I'm sure, but I don't think that he would leave after only one season. I think he's going to want to see how much further he can go with this.
What if he gets offered the Inter job?
I don't think he'll get offered the Inter job. If anything, I think he'll be offered the Napoli job. But it would be nice for him to. I would like to see a different manager.
So where's Mazzarri going to go?
I don't know. Mazzarri's being linked with everyone, but all the recent headlines are saying to Napoli, and I don't understand why, because I was like, where's Walter Mazzarri going? But maybe he's the one that goes to Inter.
Right, let me ask you this. You've seen the highlights from
Also, I just want to point out that Calcio Catania have an amazing club, an amazing base. They're going for that. They have obviously their sporting centre. They put money in. They've always wanted to go up, and he's been supported by something great. So it's not entirely his doing, as much as I think that he's quite a tactical wizard at the moment.
No, they have a very good director of football as well, who might be leaving the club as well, of course, Monaco.
Do you think that he will take the Fiorentina job?
I don't know. He's been linked to Fiorentina. It's weird, though. They get into the whole world of Della Valle brothers.
And then Catania's also going to try to aim for that stadium that they've been having talks about, 80 to 100 million euros investment. It's a great little club. If I was Montella, I wouldn't leave right now.
I don't know. It's hard to resist. I'll tell you what, he's an ambitious and intelligent young man. But enough Catania, Napoli, Lazio, because let's talk big things. Let's talk Derby d'Italia. Let's talk Juve and Inter with our man. Wow. Now this is the Tancredi Palmeri, who I see you've redecorated your house.
yeah, it's definitely, this is everything is going good with Sports Night Live, so see what kind of job I could make here in my place. No. I was wondering how long still you could wait.
Tell us where you are.
Well, we are at the Hall of Fame Sports Bistro in Milan. That is probably one of the best places here in Milano where to come to enjoy sports and other things. And as you can see, actually, you can't see all over the other rooms, but it is very nice. Should be a kind of museum. Should be to pay a kind of ticket to get here.
Where you enjoy sports and other things. What are the other things? Never mind, Tancredi. Derby d'Italia, what did you think of Inter's performance? And now there's all these rumors of Ranieri hitting the end of his time with Inter. Is that true?
Well, today, early this morning, well, we'll say midday today, Sky Sports Italy came out saying that probably there was never such a moment like this for Ranieri, never there was such a danger to be sacked. Honestly, personally, frankly, I wouldn't rule in that way, as Sky Sports said, but then just a few minutes ago, Massimo Moratti, the Inter president, spoke, and he said that, literally, his words were, I think Ranieri will stay until summer. Now, the meaning of this I think coming from Moratti's mouth could be enough to fill encyclopedia about Inter's story. Probably the most fitting explanation is that anyway, Inter yesterday played a quite honorable performance until the 65th minutes. They were completely leveling Juventus, if not even better. And then again, after the first goal, they completely melted down. And so when Moratti said, I think, probably means if Inter will play honorable until the end, Ranieri will keep his job at least until the summer. If they will not concede any 4-0 or some defeat at home in San Siro, as they did against Bologna, so something that would be really a disaster for psychology and everything. So probably there wouldn't be any need for another further sacking in this season, and actually also because there are not so many alternatives around.
I don't, you were talking about the fact that, and Ranieri did say after the match that basically when they conceded, they sort of fell apart. But I think that we need to give credit to the fact that Antonio Conte knew exactly what to do. I mean, there was all that space with Nagatomo's side, like they had to, with Poli on Pirlo. It was, the right thing to do was to strengthen the wings and allow Cáceres to push up. So I think we have to acknowledge that it was the 3-5-2 that sort of changed the game entirely.
Exactly. The thing is that you are coming harsh to the point, but that it is actually. At the 65th minute, there was a manager that knew that probably arrived there wrongly, but knew what to do. And then after, there was a manager that arrived there with the right attitude, but didn't know what to do, because actually the changes yesterday were kind of a big enigma, also in all the TVs, for all the journalists. I mean, the midfield, the Inter's midfield was performing so good. Finally, there were legs.
Exactly. Why were they taken off? Why did you take off the passes of the ball? Why did Ranieri take them off?
Because you put on wingers like Faraoni and another striker like Pazzini, so he could fight.
But what is Pazzini going to do for you? I mean, he doesn't really add another body when you need to sort of strengthen against that 5 midfield of Juventus. You know that they're going to hold that line. You're going to shove in another striker who is like Pazzini, who generally stays up quite high. How is that going to work for you, tactically speaking? Faraoni, fine, I understand, but you had 2 passes of the ball who were doing really well in the first half.
Right.
We can make speculation about.
Enough criticism of Inter. Let's move on and talk. Can we talk some Del Piero, please?
Del Piero, talk Del Piero.
Talk some Del Piero, because this guy is going to be 38 years old in November. His contract with Juventus is expiring because the evil hobbit who inherited the club isn't giving him a new deal.
Enough criticism of Vincenzo. So let's start with Agnelli, shall we? Your usual.
He scored, in the past week, he scored against Milan and against Inter, and he hasn't complained all season long. He's not playing.
Yeah, this is the cover page of Gazzetta, as you can see. Una Juve al bacio, that means kind of such a Juve. And, well, definitely it's the perfect revenge, I think, that every footballer could hope in a situation like that. Because, honestly, the way it was announced that Del Piero was going to quit with Juventus was going to finish this year, in my opinion, but I'm not the only one to think that. Honestly, it's quite spread opinion. It was quite was not deserved for a kind of personality like Del Piero. He didn't spell a word, he didn't spell a mouth, he didn't complain all the year, even in situation when honestly everyone was thinking why Conte is not bringing him in, because now probably Juventus could need some kind of his fantasy of his creativity.
Well, listen, now that he's in form, he's playing. But I do think the way that the media has reacted to the way that Agnelli said that he's not staying is a little bit exaggerated. It's been mentioned.
I'm sorry, Mina, I have to disagree. The thing is that he has to, not even Del Piero agreed with that. But as long as it is, and I have to pay him a full respect for that, as long as it is a real captain of a team, a real captain, I would say also of a company, of a family, as Juventus, he said, in a season like this, in a year like this, if I bring out my problems at first, that could, I'm sorry for the word, that could screw all the ambitions of the team, because probably everything would just focus on speculations and on quarrels over my position. What is sure 100% is that Del Piero would have signed for sure to continue again with Juventus. Yesterday again, when there was this kind of Italian match of the day, and he was there and I was joking with him, he said in between the answers, he said, I didn't say I'm going to quit football. And actually that's what it is. He will have plenty of options. Of course, it's not said that will be...
But he said that this would be his last season with Juventus. It was said when the stadium was nearing the end of when it was being built.
No,
it was mentioned several times that this would be Del Piero's last season.
It wasn't him. It was the monobrow weirdo who owns the club.
Del Piero also said so. I'm sorry, it did. When he was playing against... it was mentioned before.
Okay.
For me, I thought it was an overreaction. However, I'd like to see him play, obviously, because he's our captain, so I wouldn't want him to see all the time. But I don't think that it was as bad as everyone made it out to be. And if you go to Juventus blogs, a lot of people didn't think it was bad. And these are Juventus fans speaking.
And Juventus fans know, of course. Tancredi, sorry, but we have to talk about the one Italian team who are leading the table and who are left in Europe. And, of course, that's Milan. Now, they've got this huge game coming up against Barcelona in midweek. They
got another penalty.
They played Roma at the weekend. And I was fascinated. I really believed, like, because, you know, I'm on the bandwagon. I'm a true believer in the Warriors of the Light, Luis Enrique and Franco Baldini, and the way they're playing football. And they go out there. I thought they put Milan to the sword early on. They take the lead, and then they give away a bit of a silly penalty. And then what do they do at 1-1? They just keep attacking. He sends on more strikers, and Milan go, and they nail them. Ibra again on the counterattack. Milan perhaps a little bit lucky to get all 3 points in that game?
Well, honestly, definitely, because in the first half, actually, Roma full deserved. I must say it was not something completely brand new, this attitude from Luis Enrique, because it's true that he's going for ball possession and leading control, whatever. But when he had this season the game against Juventus at Olympic Stadium, that was probably the only game where Roma was at a huge disadvantage before the kickoff, as against Milan. They completely left, in that case, the initiative to Juventus. They did the same this time with Milan, but the thing is that Milan, even if they could lead control, they didn't have on the midfield they were not playing any creative midfielder like Aquilani, like Seedorf, so nobody actually, they had the pitch, but they couldn't actually develop that kind of game, and actually then Roma could come out, possess more the game. What happened after is just probably what Luis Enrique is complaining about. That means not having a kind of defense that could match with this kind of games, because honestly, the disaster of the Danish shear on Ibrahmovic is something like, guy, I mean, it's a long ball. You have just one man to take care. And
okay, all right. Be fair, okay? Ibrahimovic is bigger and heavier, and Simon Kjær wears, as I pointed out last week, he wears a little hairband, and he looks kind of like a girl, in spite of it, a very tattooed girl, but a girl nonetheless. Anyway, I want to ask you, though, because the big story for me on a European level is actually Massimiliano Allegri. He plays Thiago Silva for 120 minutes during the week. He decides to play him again in this game, decides not to rest him, and the worst thing happens. Thiago Silva gets hurt. Now, you tweeted at the weekend, it looks like he's going to miss the first leg against Barcelona and the second leg. I hope it doesn't mean Bonera. I'm hoping Nesta can dust himself on, put on his Superman suit, and be back there. This is a disaster for Milan, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. In some way, I know that could sound controversial to say that, but in some way, maybe the importance in this moment back there of Thiago Silva is maybe got even a bigger weight than the one of Ibrahimovic up in front. Not because anyway Boateng is coming back, and anyway, of course, I'm trying to be a bit provocating there, because of course Ibrahimovic, no one can rule him out. But seriously, the way Thiago Silva was playing this season, it's hard to find a fullback that can look in the eyes Messi without feeling scared, and probably Thiago Silva is one of the few. Today there was the confirmation that Thiago Silva will be missing for sure both the legs of these quarterfinals. Nesta as well will be back. Nesta will be back for sure. Massimiliano Allegri already confirmed that in the press conference on Saturday when asked about Alessandro Nesta condition. He said he's good, he's back, he's completely fit, but of course didn't want to risk also him. Respect to Allegri for taking the responsibility of the choice. He said just after the game, it was my risk, it was my responsibility. It's because of me that happened. Still, what will happen in the games will tell if it was such a huge job.
I'm sure it was actually, with hindsight being 2020, it was a stupid decision. But it's always easy to say that after the fact.
I agree.
Tancredi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Now, of course, can't get enough of Milan. Well, in our next segment.
I thought you said can't get enough of Mina.
or Mina, different strokes for different folks. In our next segment, if you can't get enough of Milan, we'll have a Milan old boy, Carlo Ancelotti. Stay with us.